That quote has disturbed people for over 140 years. Some thought Nietzsche was celebrating the death of religion. Some thought he was simply being provocative. Some thought he was insane. He was none of those things. He was doing something far more unsettling. He was describing a crisis that almost no one in 1882 was willing to name, and that in 2026 we are living through the full consequences of. Friedrich Nietzsche was a 19th century German philosopher who went mad at 44, published books almost no one read in his lifetime, and died in obscurity. Within 20 years of his death, his ideas had shaped literature, psychology, existentialism, and political theory across the entire Western world. He remains the most quoted, most misquoted, most celebrated, and most misunderstood philosopher of the modern era. Today, I want to take you past the misquotes and the Instagram caricatures into the actual ideas. The ones that, when you genuinely understand them, don't just make you think differently. They make you see differently. And in 2026, in this specific moment of social pressure, algorithmic conformity, and institutional collapse, Nietzsche's ideas feel less like philosophy and more like a mirror held up to everything around us. Stay with me. This one goes deep. Part 1. Who was Nietzsche, really? Friedrich Nietzsche was born in 1844 in Prussia. He was a prodigy, appointed professor of classical philology at the University of Basel at just 24 years old, before he had even finished his doctorate. He was brilliant, restless, and in near constant physical pain from headaches and failing eyesight that plagued him his entire adult life. He published his first major work, The Birth of Tragedy, at 27. He wrote Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Beyond Good and Evil, and on the genealogy of morality in his 30s. In January 1889, while in Turin, he collapsed in the street, reportedly throwing his arms around a horse being beaten and weeping. He never recovered his sanity. He spent his final 11 years in mental and physical collapse, dying in 1900. Here is the first thing you must understand about Nietzsche. His ideas were violently misappropriated after his death. His sister Elizabeth, who had genuine Nazi sympathies, took control of his unpublished manuscripts and edited them to align with German nationalist ideology. For decades, Nietzsche became associated with fascism and racial superiority. This was a profound distortion. Nietzsche himself explicitly and repeatedly condemned German nationalism, anti-Semitism, and the politics of resentment. The real Nietzsche was something entirely different, a ferocious critic of conformity, herd mentality, and the unexamined life. A philosopher who believed that the greatest danger to humanity was not chaos, but the comfortable, unthinking surrender to whatever the crowd believes. Sound familiar? Part 2, God is Dead, what Nietzsche actually meant back to that opening quote. God is dead. What did Nietzsche actually mean? He was not making a theological argument. He was not celebrating atheism. He was not even primarily talking about religion at all. He was making a sociological and philosophical observation about the collapse of the value system that had held Western civilization together for over 1,000 years. For centuries, Christianity had provided the foundation for morality, meaning, purpose, hierarchy, and social order in the Western world. People knew why they were alive, what they should do, what was right and wrong, and what happened after death. All of these answers came from one source. By the 19th century, the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, and industrialization had systematically eroded the credibility of that source. Educated Europeans, increasingly, couldn't genuinely believe what their grandparents believed. But, and this is Nietzsche's crucial point, they hadn't replaced those beliefs with anything. They had killed the old foundation and were now standing on nothing, pretending nothing had changed. Nietzsche saw this as the most dangerous moment in human history. Not because God was dead, but because of what comes after. When the old values collapse without anything to replace them, three things tend to happen. First, nihilism, the belief that nothing matters, nothing has meaning, and life is pointless. Second, the desperate resurrection of dead values, people clinging to the old framework even though they no longer truly believe it, because they have nothing else. Third, and this is what Nietzsche hoped for, the creation of entirely new values by individuals brave enough to face the void without flinching. Now apply this to 2026. Traditional religion has weakened for millions. The old social scripts, go to school, get a job, marry, have children, follow the community norms, are dissolving or feel hollow for a growing number of people. And in the vacuum, we have social media metrics as a proxy for meaning. We have algorithmic approval as a substitute for genuine belonging. We have viral trends as a replacement for actual values. Nietzsche would look at the modern world and say, "This is exactly what I warned about. And the solution is exactly what I prescribed." Part 3, the herd, Nietzsche's diagnosis of social conformity. One of Nietzsche's most penetrating and most uncomfortable ideas is his concept of herd morality. He observed that most human beings, most of the time, do not actually think for themselves. They adopt the values, opinions, judgments, and behaviors of the group they belong to, and then mistake that adoption for genuine belief. He called this slave morality, a morality built not on genuine values, but on resentment, conformity, and the suppression of excellence. The herd, Nietzsche argued, instinctively fears anyone who stands apart. Not because that person is dangerous, but because their independence is a reproach. It reminds the herd of what they have surrendered. Think about this in modern terms. Someone in your life chooses to reject a social convention, refuses to perform rituals they don't believe in, asks uncomfortable questions about traditions that have calcified into mere habit, refuses to play a social role they were assigned without their consent. What is the typical response? Not engagement, not curiosity, not counter-argument. The response is pressure. Social discomfort, labels. You're being difficult. Why can't you just be normal? Think about what people will say. Notice what is absent from all of those responses, a single reason why the convention is actually valuable. The herd does not argue. It pressures, because argument requires confronting the question of whether the convention is actually worth anything, and that question is too dangerous to ask. This is what Nietzsche called the herd instinct in morality, the transformation of conformity into virtue and nonconformity into vice. Not through reason, but through social force. You are not wrong because your argument fails. You are wrong because everyone around you is uncomfortable. The modern version of this is almost perfectly designed. Social media gives you a real-time metric of social approval, likes, follows, shares. The algorithm rewards content that validates what people already believe. Algorithms don't push ideas that challenge the herd, they push ideas that confirm it. We have built the most sophisticated herd management infrastructure in human history and called it connection. Nietzsche would not have been surprised. He would have been horrified, but not surprised. Part 4, Will to Power, the most misunderstood idea in philosophy. Nothing in Nietzsche is more misunderstood than the will to power. People hear that phrase and imagine domination, a desire to rule others, to accumulate control. That is not what Nietzsche meant. Not even close. The will to power is not a desire for power over others. It is a drive toward self-overcoming, toward growth, toward becoming more fully what you are capable of being. It is the fundamental creative impulse, the force that makes a sculptor pick up stone and carve, a philosopher stay up through the night to follow a thought, a person refuse to accept a diminished version of themselves when something larger is possible. Nietzsche writes, "What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not an end." Human beings, he believed, are not a finished product. We are something to be surpassed, not by a different species, but by ourselves. Every day, every choice, every moment of discipline or surrender is a vote on who we are becoming. In practical terms, the will to power shows up as the refusal to settle. Not out of restless dissatisfaction, but out of a deep commitment to what you are actually capable of. The person who keeps asking harder questions when easier answers are available. The person who refuses to let their environment define their ceiling. The person who, when told this is just how things are, says, "Prove it." Applied to 2026, we live in what might be called a comfort economy. Everything is optimized for ease, convenience, frictionlessness. And ease is not inherently bad, but Nietzsche would argue that a life organized entirely around the avoidance of friction is a life that has quietly surrendered its will to power. Not to an enemy, to a preference for comfort. And that, he thought, was the saddest possible defeat. Part 5, Become Who You Are, the prescription. So far we have covered Nietzsche's diagnosis, the death of inherited values, the tyranny of the herd, the suppression of individual excellence. Now the prescription. Nietzsche's answer to all of this is contained in a single phrase he borrowed from the ancient poet Pindar: become who you are. It sounds almost simple. It is one of the most demanding ideas in all of philosophy. Become who you are does not mean become what you feel like being at any given moment. Nietzsche had no patience for mere impulse. It means excavate what is genuinely, distinctly, irreducibly you, beneath the inherited scripts, beneath the social pressures, beneath the fear of judgment, and then have the courage to build your life from that foundation. He called this the creation of values, not the discovery of values as if they were buried somewhere waiting to be found. The creation, the genuinely difficult, genuinely creative act of deciding what matters, why it matters, and what you are willing to live for and by. He introduced the figure of the Übermensch, often badly translated as Superman, but better understood as the person who has overcome themselves, as a symbol of this possibility. Not a biological superior being. A philosophical ideal, the person who faces the void left by the collapse of inherited values, refuses the easy consolations of nihilism or mindless conformity, and creates something new from their own depth. What does this look like in ordinary life? It looks like someone who sits with the uncomfortable question of what they actually believe, not what they were told to believe, not what their community approves of, not what their social circle validates, but what they, after genuine examination, find to be true and worth living by. And then acts from that, consistently, regardless of the social cost. This is not comfortable. Nietzsche never promised comfort. He promised something he thought was far more valuable: authenticity. The strange, difficult, irreplaceable experience of living as yourself. Part 6, Nietzsche and the Modern World. Let me make all of this very concrete. Here are 4 Nietzschean ideas, and exactly where you can see them operating in the world right now. 1. Slave morality is thriving. Online social media has created a global infrastructure for what Nietzsche called ressentiment, the transformation of personal weakness or resentment into a moral framework. When groups or ideologies organize primarily around what they oppose, around grievance and blame, rather than around genuine values and creation, that is slave morality at scale. Nietzsche would see it everywhere, on every part of the political spectrum, and he would be equally critical of all of it. 2. Nihilism is the default setting. Nothing matters. It's all pointless. Why bother? The language of casual nihilism is everywhere in online culture. Nietzsche understood this reaction deeply. When the old values collapse, nihilism is the first response. But he thought it was a coward's response, the refusal to do the hard work of creating new values. He called it passive nihilism, and he distinguished it from active nihilism, the willingness to destroy what is dead to make space for what is possible. One is surrender. The other is the beginning of creation. 3. Authenticity has become a brand, in an irony Nietzsche would have found darkly funny. Authenticity has become one of the most aggressively marketed concepts of our time. Be yourself is a slogan on t-shirts sold by corporations. Living authentically is a content category. But actual authenticity, the difficult, socially costly, internally demanding process Nietzsche described, is still extraordinarily rare. Most authenticity is a performance of authenticity for an audience. Nietzsche's version has no audience. It has no likes. It may have no approval at all. 4. Tradition without examination is weakness, not strength. Nietzsche was not opposed to tradition per se. He was opposed to tradition maintained by inertia rather than genuine value, forms preserved long after their content has been hollowed out. A ritual, a norm, an institution that survives not because anyone genuinely believes in it, but because everyone is too afraid or too comfortable to question it. He called this the living death of culture, and he thought the courage to question it, even at social cost, was one of the marks of a genuinely healthy person. Closing, Nietzsche is not an easy philosopher to spend time with. He is provocative, extreme, sometimes wrong, always challenging. He makes demands. He will not let you settle. He looks at comfortable certainty and asks, is this actually yours, or did you just inherit it without noticing? But in that discomfort, if you stay with it, there is something genuinely liberating. The recognition that the values you live by are either inherited or created, and that you have more agency over that choice than you have probably been told. That the social pressure to conform is not an argument. It is just pressure. And pressure yields to those who have decided, clearly and genuinely, what they actually stand for. Nietzsche wrote in one of the most quietly devastating lines in all of philosophy, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. To be your own man is a hard business. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Own yourself. That is the whole of it. If this video made you think, please hit like and subscribe. There is a whole series coming on the ideas that shape how we live, whether we know it or not. Drop a comment below which of Nietzsche's ideas hit closest to home for you. I read everyone. See you in the next one.